Okay, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. See, if logged in, that is, you can see number of us have logged in. Good morning. Good morning. Are you there?
Hi, James. Good morning.
Good morning to you. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Who else do we have here?
Hi, James. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, James.
This is who?
Richard.
Richard.
Yes.
Okay, welcome, Richard.
Thank you.
Morning, James. This is Jackie.
Jackie, welcome. Morning to you.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, Thomas says his mic is not responding, but he can hear us. Welcome, Thomas. Who else we have? We have, where is Marilyn? You can see Marilyn there. We have Marilyn, we have Reggie. Peggy, sorry. Marilyn, if you can hear, just say hi to us. Same to Peggy, Rhoda.
Good morning.
Good morning.
This is Maina.
Okay. Welcome, Maina.
Thanks.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi, this is Peggy.
Thank you, Peggy. Welcome.
Thank you.
Who else have we not heard from and is on the line? And see a chat coming here from Merlin. Okay. Merlin says good morning. Then there's another person.
Good morning, James. This is Rhoda.
Yes, brother. How are you?
I'm fine, James.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Have we heard from everybody? There's somebody whose identity is reading in digits. I don't know who that person is. I can see they have said good morning. Right. So thank you very much. I wish to welcome each one of us to this session today, which is the final session on basic leadership skills. And before we start,
morning. Good morning.
Yes. Morning. How are you? Who is this?
Right. Erastus.
Rastas. Yes. Well, Rastas, welcome.
Yes, thank you.
Karibu sana.
Santi sana.
So I was saying, yes. Let me see whether we have anybody else we've maybe we've not heard from. Okay, I think so far so good. It seems like we've heard from everybody. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome to today's conversation. I hope it will be going to be as interactive as possible. We're going to share experiences based on the topical issues that we have or that I've made some preparations around. I would request one of us to volunteer with a prayer, just a brief prayer, then we take on from there.
Okay, James, I will pray. My name is Rhoda.
Rhoda, welcome. Asante sana.
Thank you. Let's pray. Father, in the mighty name of Jesus, we want to thank you for this day. We thank you for the gift of life. We thank you, Jehovah, my Father, for the session that we have ahead. We thank you, Lord, for everyone that you have enabled to log in, Jehovah, my Father. We pray that as we deliberate, Jehovah, my Father, that you're going to give us insight, you're going to give us wisdom. In Jesus' mighty name we pray.
Amen. Thank you, Rhoda. Thank you, everybody, for logging in this Saturday. And I just want to say it's a good day that we're starting again this conversation. And just as a recap of what we did last time, we had a conversation around the basic introduction on leadership skills, where we looked at the skills that are needed. We also looked at dealing with planning, the art of communication, counseling, and also how to carry out counseling. Then again, we also had a conversation around career skills for a leader, things to do with being patient, finding the right situation in which to work, building a team, finding the right place at the right time, as well as assessing your next move. Then we also looked at the people skills for a leader, where we said it's very, very imperative that leaders ensure that they provide clarity in any communication that they do, or there's that need to have clarity in any communication, any information that you give, so that people are able now to be clear on what is expected of them. And also we talked about the issue of delegating. How do we ensure that we, as a leader, or as leaders, we are able to delegate effectively? Because normally that is a challenge to most of us, where you delegate and maybe you delegate without the right resources, you delegate without knowing that accountability falls or stops with you. Then we also looked at the art of coaching and also the coaching structure that was on people skills. Then we concluded with the technical skills for leaders, where we talked about clarity in writing, telling a story where we said leaders must walk the talk. We also talked about listening, where we emphasized the need for leaders to be good listeners, because it's only through listening that you're able to get all the information that you need to make any decision. Then we also talked about presentation styles, decision making, as well as negotiation process. Those are the, I believe, the key areas that we had a conversation around in our past meeting that was last Saturday. So today, I want to bring to your attention the key areas that we'll be looking at. One is, as a leader now, this is just a continuation of where we stopped. So we'll be looking at values and behaviors. Under values and behaviors, our focus will be on working to win. Then the 4 Ps. Then we have positive leadership, as well as the art of buying time. The art of buying time. Then after that, we also look at communication and conflict resolution skills. So this entirely will give us more information or knowledge and skills on how to deal with communication barriers. How do we ensure that we're able to resolve conflicts, as well as the different styles that can be utilized in resolving these conflicts. Because remember, conflicts are inseparable and they're inevitable in any situation that we exist in. Then we'll also look at leadership initiatives for cultural diversity. We all operate in a very cultural diverse environment, both at workplace and even where we stay. So generally, it requires some initiatives that can enable us to coexist. And that coexistence is what we'll be looking at, so that we ensure that we are not biased. We are not biased in making decisions regarding ourselves and also the environment that we operate in. Then we'll also end up by looking at leadership development and succession. How do we evaluate our leadership? How do we deal with learning, issues to do with learning? And how does learning therefore inform development processes and succession planning within the organizations? Then we'll finalize with some case studies on building a team and also building the interpersonal skills. So in summary, ladies and gentlemen, that's what we will be looking at. But of course, I'll break it into two, where we'll have a break. Thereafter, we'll proceed with the second and final bit of these basic leadership skills 2. So in a nutshell, that is basically what I want us to look at. And as I start, usually with leadership, because as we're moving now to the basic, after basic leadership skills, then we'll be looking at the advanced leadership. And basically, what I want to bring to your attention is that it is important, anytime we talk about leadership, leadership is also enhanced when we read, or when we actually read about what other leaders have done, and also some of the books that you need to read, and what sometimes there are some authors that will inspire you as a leader. And to me, there's one of the authors that usually inspires me. In fact, there are 2. One is Denzel Washington, and Denzel Washington is popularly known for his inspiration when it comes to him talking about change. And he says that anytime, nothing in life is worthwhile unless we take risks. And he says that you can only take a risk to justify progression to the next level. That at no point can you think about or dream about moving to the next level if you don't take risks. And he says, when people talk about you need to have something to fall back to, he says, he believes it's about falling forward. And he gives that analogy and says, if I fall forward, I'm able to see where I'm falling. And like if I fall backwards, where as much as I would assume that people will be there, or there could be some people to get hold of me, but I'm not very certain on whether I'll actually fall and those people will actually hold me, or they will leave me, they will actually leave me to fall down alone. I don't know whether you've, there was a clip some time back where it was more of a team building session, and the guys were behind this person and he was told to fall back so that they hold him. But I think the instructions did not go down well. So by the time he was falling, people are not expecting that he's going to fall, so they did expect to hold him. Then he fell down, and the question was, who gave the wrong instructions? How come when this person was falling back, people are not anticipating to hold him? So according to Denzel Washington, then people should not anticipate to fall back. They should actually anticipate to fall forward because they can see where they're falling. And based on that, they'll be able to know, do they fall now to the right? Do they fall to the left? So that's one of the things that inspires me most with regard to leadership. The second one is, and you can always get this even on the YouTube, we have also Simon Sinek. Simon Sinek is a British American author. He's a very inspirational and motivational speaker. And one of the key books that or talks that inspires me most or inspires people is one, he talks about how to be a great leader, especially in inspiring excellence around you. And also, he also talks about that in your life, you should always ask yourself, or start by asking why. In fact, according to that, when you read about asking why, it gives you a lot of insight in understanding yourself and why you do certain things. In fact, if you read about that, you'll find that it talks about three things: what you do, how you do, and why you do things. And he says that every time you ask yourself those three questions and you answer them, then you're on the right trajectory towards leadership. Then the other one, he talks about leaders eat last. He talks about leaders being people who eat, who are the last people to eat. And he brings out the analogy that leaders are not, they should not be the first ones to look at what is it that we need to do, but they should drive other people, then they will eat last. So generally, that was just a recap of last week, and just to give you some of the thoughts or some of the lines of thought that different authors talk about with regard to leadership and how that can inspire you to be a great leader. Good. So as we start, let me just share my screen. Let me share my screen. Right. So as I've said, these are the key areas that we will be looking at, or we'll have a conversation around. That is values and behaviors. There's communication and conflict resolution skills. We'll also look at leadership initiatives for achieving cultural diversity, leadership development, and succession. Then we'll have a case study about these issues to do with and behaviors. One of the components under values and behavior, we have working to win. Working to win. So we are always driven by the act to succeed. I don't think there's anybody who is driven by failure. Nobody thinks about failure. Nobody wakes up to say, I'm going to fail. Nobody plans to fail. It's only that we normally put our plans, but the manner in which we've strategized or the strategies that we've put in place are the ones that will make us to fail. But nobody intends to fail. So under this working to win, the conceptualization of this is that one, you need to plan or play to your strength. All of us have our own strength. And anytime maybe I ask you to give me your strength, you are able to tell me whether you are good at learning, you are good at adaptation, you are good at decision making. So all those you mention them. But at the same time, also there'll be those weaknesses or limitations that you have, and how are you likely to overcome them? So under this working to win, for you to win, then you must put into consideration these four aspects. One is playing to your strength. Know what you are good at and in what context. Are you good at working in a team? Are you good at working independently? Are you good at networking? Are you good at, are you an introvert? Are you an extrovert? And to what extent do you exhibit these characteristics towards success? Are you good in working within the project? Maybe you are working in a department. What are the strengths that you have in that? Take a look at a football or a soccer team. The soccer team has how many players? 11 players. Now, if this team is playing against another team and you find that one team has less players, one has 10 or even 9, you realize that this team will feel overburdened because it's like they should now carry the burden of 11 players, yet they are 9. And what does that portend? It portends that by having this less people within the team, it shows that there are certain areas that will be crippled. And that crippling now will affect the overall performance of the team. So the same way, if you're working to win, then you need to identify the strength of the people that you have. If you're working as a team, then try to synergize them so that as they work, they're able to be complementary. So you build on the strength of the person, and once you build on the strength of the person, then you'll be looking at where else can we have this person developed. Instead of wanting this person to perform duties or roles that they do not understand, or grappling with an area that you have no clue, you have no idea, you have never practiced, and therefore you start struggling to adjust to that circumstance. So what we're saying is that you need to start by building on the strength. That's where we say, start with the capacities that you have, then try to acquire other capacities, maybe through exposure, through mentorship, through learning. Secondly, think like a winner. Remember all the times you have done great things. Let yourself get back into that frame of mind. Think like a winner. We normally say that the size of your success is determined by the size of your belief. So you have that limited belief, it will automatically affect how you think of success. So always think like a winner. Don't think like a loser. And once you think about that, that's when you'll understand why you do certain things. People get exhausted or you get burned down, not because of the work, but it's because you do not understand why you do certain things. So at any given point, if you lack that understanding on why I wake up in the morning, why I go to work, then it tends to affect your perception and automatically your energies towards doing something. So remember that at all times, think like a winner. And once you think like a winner, you'll actually become that winner. Otherwise, if every time you are negative, every time you don't look at yourself as this person who can do it, then believe you me, you will never achieve that. Then once you think like a winner, then at the same time, always visualize success. So as you think like a winner, then you are visualizing success. Meaning you can see that success is ahead of you. It's within reach. Success is something that you are likely to achieve. And I've mentioned that it's a very important before big or stressful events. Walk through each step of the event, seeing what a successful outcome looks like, feels like, smells like, and sounds like. Have you ever, and maybe this one I can give a very weird example. In life, there could have been that one time where you had dreamt of having, or just getting a job, or maybe getting some recognition, and one day then people recognize you. That's the time now you feel like you are this person that you've always felt like. That's when you smell that success. You feel like you've succeeded. You've had people asking others, how does it feel like to get a job, or how does it feel like to get to a new role? So all that are feelings or ideologies that we want to create in our mindset to actually visualize what is it, or how do people who are successful feel like. From where I come from, there's usually that question people keep asking, that how do people succeed? But in mother tongue, it sounds very enticing if you mention it in mother tongue. But normally, it is used to just people. It's like people are curious to see, how do people succeed? So once they look at you as a successful person, then every time they want to know, how do successful people think, or what makes them to succeed? Meaning, it's like you want to learn from this successful person. So this gives us that mirroring, where you can mirror yourself. And for example, if there are people that you look up to, it should be your prerogative to keep on asking them, how did you reach to this point? What did you do? How did you do it that made you to reach the kind of echelons that you've reached? And that's the essence of now visualizing success. So the moment you associate yourself with successful people, the moment you associate yourself with people who have who have this kind of mindset, then it will have that spiral effect now to you, where you also start thinking about life from that perspective. Then, so you need to walk through each step of the event, seeing what a successful outcome looks like. Where you ask yourself, how does success feel like? Is success, how does it? When you succeed, how do you feel? How do you like? Do you develop energy from nowhere? Do you just feel that you have this oomph in yourself? And how does it sound like? How does it smell like? Now, these are just figurative languages that we may use to make, or it's like we are trying to personify success. It's like it's a human being, or it's a taste, it's some food, but it all makes us to visualize success from a very, very different viewpoint. Then another one is that create a team that compensates for your weaknesses. Now, this is where there is usually a challenge, creating a team that compensates for your weaknesses. Many of us, or many people, or many leaders, people that we claim to be leaders, some of them have this phobia, whereby they don't want to have people that are very intelligent, people that are inquisitive, people that will challenge them. They don't want to have those kind of people. Rather, they'll want people who are not inquisitive. They'll want people who are always Mr. or Miss Yes. Every time the leader talks to them, it's about yes, what do we do, or how, or what do you want us to do? But history has it that, in fact, from research, leaders who are successful always have very strong teams. You may find a leader who is not very well versed in different skills. And remember diversity, a leader will not possess all the traits. But this leader can succeed if they have complementary team members. Because these complementary team members are the ones that will make the decisions that will make this leader now to appear successful. But failure to have that, it will actually make a lot of jeopardy now to the organization, and this leader will not achieve what they purpose to achieve, because they have people who are not very creative, people who are not innovative, people who don't question the status quo. Because as a leader, the only way you can grow or you can move to the next level, you can transform the organization, is through getting people who think outside the box. Because you cannot think outside the box yourself or alone, but you require these other people who will come up with very brilliant ideas, and whenever they bring them out, that's when you realize, oh, this sounds good, and you can go ahead and implement that. So for you to build successful teams, then you must have people that compensate for your weaknesses. For example, if you're not good at accounting, rest assured there are thousands of accountants out to help you on that. So you just need to have the right people with the right skills, and it will actually make you appear to be somebody who understands all that, because you'll have the right reports. As a leader, you'll be presenting the right reports, and that means we'll now perceive you as a leader that understands what they're doing. So those are the key areas of working to win. Then I talked about the second aspect of values and behaviors, which is learning to be lucky, or we refer to them as the 4 Ps. One of the P is practice. The more you practice, the luckier you get. Remember, this is a concept we've had way back, even from the time in school, where we were being told practice makes perfect. Then the more you do it, I remember in mathematics, I was being told every day, make sure that you do a sum, carry out, or just do some mathematics quiz, because the more you do it, the more it gets ingrained in your mind, and it makes you comfortable at doing it. So even in leaders, practice to be a leader. Always be this person who shows passion for leadership, exhibit the traits of a leader, and people will actually look at you and say, I think this person deserves to be a leader. Then persistence. Another P is persistence. And under persistence, we say that the difference between failure and success is giving up. So there is success, there is failure. So giving up is what differentiates the two. So if you don't give up, you succeed. If you give up, you fail. That's the second P. That's learning to be lucky. Under the values and behaviors that leads to good leadership. So you need to be persistent. So whenever you are pursuing something, it could be you are looking at enhancing your capacity. It could be you just want to pursue that recognition at workplace, or just want to achieve something in life. Then you must always ensure that you persist in that. You've had this cliche where some people they'll claim to be in those positions until they get to that, where you hear them saying that you fake it until you get it. That's also an aspect of believing in yourself. Remember, some of the successful people people who are leading companies, the entrepreneurs, these serial entrepreneurs, these people never studied entrepreneurship. But it's that self-belief, believe in themselves that they can do it, is what propelled them to those levels. Then another P is preparation. And this essentially points that if you do not know what you are looking for, you will not find it. If you do not know what you're looking for, you'll never find it. Know what you want, hunt it persistently. That's under preparation. Just like if you do not know where you are going, any road can lead you anywhere. You must always have a destination in mind, so that once you have that destination, then it informs you on which road to take. If you there's usually this Bible teaching that we were subjected to when we were young, and we were told that there are only two roads. The bigger road is heads to the biblical teaching is like there's hell and heaven, and we are told that the wider road carries many people to hell. Then the tinier one actually carries people or heads people to heaven. So that time when we were growing up, we could visualize that. And anytime you look at the wider road and think, I think this wider road means that so many people are sinners and therefore they'll use the wider one. It actually means to be huge to accommodate these people. But the smaller one has very few people. That means people who are not sinners are very few, or people who repent and ensure that they are falling into the right direction, they are very few, and therefore they use the tinier road. So if you do not know what you're looking for, you will not find it. Because so depending on who you are, what you believe in, what your aspirations are, then that's what will shape the kind of direction that you will be taking. Then always have the positive outlook. Look for solutions, not problems. Be this person that exhibits resilience, somebody that exhibits solutions. You are solution-minded. You shouldn't be that problem-oriented person, so that whenever we talk to you, you're just giving us the negativity. You know, we have these people that whenever we interact with them, whatever they share is more negative than positive. So look for action, not analysis. Be confident in yourself. If you're not enthusiastic, no one else will be. If you're not enthusiastic, no one else will be. Now, there is this word we call triumph. Triumph is a combination of try and success. So triumph is a combination of those two. To triumph means you've reached those levels. And the difference between trying and succeeding is the oomph. Now, the oomph is that word. In fact, if you look at triumph, there is oomph in between. So we have try and the triumph. So the oomph is that confidence that you develop within yourself, the energy, the drive, the confidence, okay? The creativity that you develop that propels you to the greater height. That's where these 4 P's come in handy. Then we have also under the values and behaviors, we need to build what we call positive leadership and asking the right questions. Now, this is where we look at the comparison between a leader mindset and a follower mindset. So a leader will ask this question: what are some of the possible solutions or options or way forward? The follower mindset, takuwa anauliza what went wrong. Then a leader mindset will ask, what can I do now to regain control and build momentum of this? Now that I've not been thinking rightly, what can I do to regain control of or build my momentum? What is it that can make me to rethink my journey? But if you are follower mindset, every time you'll be asking yourself, why have I been put in this position? So in other words, you will attribute your tribulations at that moment to external forces. Why have I not achieved this in 2020? Why have I not gotten an growth in my career? Why have I put, that's a follower mindset. Then on leader mindset, on this other end, then we have, who support do I need and how will I get it? So remember, we are talking about the solutions. How do I regain control? And whose support do I need and how will I get it? Then as a follower, you'll be there and saying, who messed up? Who messed me up? Who is going to put this right? So you ask yourself, so those questions are the ones that will linger into the minds. depending on whether you are the follower mindset or the leader mindset. What can I learn from this that is now on the leader mindset? Then as a follower mindset, you'll ask yourself, how do I avoid blame? How do I avoid blame? So if you look at the follower, you can see that followers tend to be averse, but leaders, they actually deal with things as they come. So you're looking at, what is it that I can do? How can I do it? How do I get support on this? And what is that I've learned from this problem? Or what have I learned from this mistake? What have I learned from this experience? That's what leaders do. They learn from experience. But if you're still a follower, then yours will be, how do I avoid the blame? You know, in this case, you're just trying to be this nice person. You're just trying to be this follower. And for you, it's like you have no accountability. You don't want to be accountable to anything. You don't want to account for any action. Rather, you just want to exist within the same framework. Then under values and behavior, the last thing is the art of buying time. Now, on this art of buying time, we look at three main areas. That is, agree the goal of the idea. What is the problem this idea solves? For whom? What are the benefits of doing this, and for whom? Secondly, understand the context. What are the time frames? What support and resources will be available if you are to implement this process? What are we looking at this now? How do this fit with our priorities? Those are the questions that you'll be asking yourself under this in exhibiting the art of buying time. Then create and evaluate the options. How else can this be achieved? What are the obstacles to success? Then we conclude. So that those four areas reflect values and behaviors with regard to leaders. So are we there, ladies and gentlemen? Any question, any clarification? Maybe you can ask, or you may seek any clarification on each of these areas that I've mentioned, so that we align ourselves. I don't want us to, maybe I've left you behind, or there's something that is not clear. You can always raise your hand, or you can always chat to ensure that we move together. Right. Anyway, as I've said, you can use the chat section if there's anything that you need clarification. So the second aspect is communication and conflict resolution skills as one of the key areas of discussion with regard to the leadership skills, communication and conflict resolution. And you can see any leader, we talked about leaders inspiring and influencing. You cannot inspire, neither can you influence if you don't have the right communication. So your art of communication will be a determinant of your successful leadership. Now, take an example. You know, leadership starts with you as an individual. It starts from home. It starts from where the people that you interact with. So the more you communicate, the articulation of your ideas is what informs the influence to the people. People will actually cling to you because of the way you communicate, because of the message that you communicate. And that's what can inspire them to feel part, or to actually have a sense of belonging to you as a leader. You've seen even at home, parents and children. If you're that parent that does not communicate, or if you have these parents that their communication is hampered, it's a bit gagged, then you find that children will not find those parents as inspiring. They'll not even talk to them. Or you'll find that you are not very comfortable talking to one of the parents that is not very communication friendly. Okay, so the same way, if we are having people that do not communicate, people that do not encourage communication, then it becomes a barrier. And you find that handling or solving problems becomes a challenge. Because whenever there's no communication, it means that people will not be aware, and even influencing somebody becomes a tall order. So under communication and conflict resolution skills, one of the issues or one of the components that I want us to look at is suggestion for inspirational speaking and writing. That leaders are supposed to inspire through their communication. So one of the key points under suggestion for inspirational speaking and writing is that you need to be credible. You need to be sounding, or you'll be creating this image of trust. Make people, whatever you say, let people believe in you. Let people always think in what you're saying and trusting what you say. That's now the credibility. And this credibility can only be realized through the choice of language that you do, even the timing of the message, how you communicate, how you listen. Do you allow feedback? All that is what will inform the credibility aspect. Are you that person who promises what you don't achieve? Secondly is gear your message to the listener. And it calls for a lot of emotional intelligence. And you've seen this happening with some of the leaders. What they do, they'll gauge the mood of the people or the mood of the listener. Then they'll communicate the message as per that mood. So your ability to interpret the situation is what makes you a good leader. I remember we used to, in our constituency, there used to be this political leader, and because he was not a very good person when it comes to projects, performing, and then generally just ensuring that the constituency is developing. So people did not like him because he was also arrogant. But apparently he had mastered the art of communication. And he played it very well, because anytime he's allowed, even if you just give him 10 minutes or 2 minutes, you get convinced and you start clapping and applauding the person that you didn't want to hear about. But anytime, because he had mastered the art of communication, and he will actually communicate the message based on how you people, the mood of the people at that particular time. So having mastered that, then it enabled him to vary his communication. It enabled him to vary the choice of words, the choice of message to communicate at that particular time. And that's what leaders are. The ability to interpret the situation and communicate the right message at that particular time. And that calls for a lot of emotional intelligence for you to ascertain that I think these people are not in the mood for this message. If I do communicate this message, it will spell a lot of doom. So I have to quickly retrace my message and shape it in a manner that will be sellable to the public. 3, this kind of leaders also sell group members on the benefit of your suggestions. So let people associate your suggestion with their benefit. Let not appear like it's your own benefit, but you make it feel part and parcel of the people. It's like the people that you are leading are the ones that will benefit from this kind of suggestion. Then number 4, use heavy impact and emotion provoking words. Use heavy impact and emotion provoking words. Now, this works very well with the charismatic leaders. And you've seen that all over. Charismatic leaders tend to have a lot of emotional attachment with the message that they actually portray. Look at history. Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler was loved and hated in equal measure. But anytime people could listen to him, they could actually think that he's the right leader. But the kind of thing that he was doing was completely negative. So what made him now to actually make people to believe in him is that aspect of when he speaks and people are just crying and saying, yes, you are the solution to our problems. Look at Martin Luther King. When he talked about, I have a dream, people could emotionally attach themselves to that dream. The dream that will actually make the Black people to get to that transition from being subjected to this subversive manner of the whites into them being independent, into them being recognized, into them moving to the next level. And you could see the tone of the message actually resonated very well with the emotions of the people. And that's why you hear people, sometimes when a leader is talking to them, they tend to get emotionally attached to the message. Come to where we work. We have these people that anytime we want them to speak to us because of the emotional manner in which they convey the message. So the same way as a leader, we are looking at how do you impact on or the choice of the words that you have that makes people now to actually get driven, or they get emotional, they get immersed into your thinking, and therefore they buy your idea. Then we have this using anecdotes and metaphors to communicate meaning. I think this is very common with the political class in Kenya, where people will use metaphors, they will use synonyms, they will use all manner of other sayings. So they use those sayings to make their message appealing. Say that they're not referring to anyone, but metaphorically, you can know or you can get that their message is intended towards somebody. But they use them very figuratively, but they're communicating something to the people. That's now when you use the metaphors to communicate meaning, and also the anecdotes and that. Then it is important that we back up conclusions with data. Why do I say that? Leaders, for them to be credible, if you want to be a credible leader, then it's not just about theorizing things, but you've seen, if you want to be credible enough, people want to hear supporting your allegations with data. So anytime you mention the figures, then people start saying, yeah, I think this person knows what they're talking about, and they have the right information, which will definitely convince the public, or will convince the people that you are working with to actually buy your idea. Assuming it's an organization and you want to support the agenda of adopting automation, or currently people have been debating about whether do you go back to work physically or we still continue with the working from home. Now, for people to be convinced, even management, the leadership of the organization, for them to be convinced that it works, they need that statistics. They would require the statistics to back up the suggestion that we let us still have or embrace the working from home formula. But without statistics, somebody will wake up and ask you that I don't think working from home is productive. And you know, because you don't have any data to support that, that's when you go mute and you have no basis to argue out that point. But if you have your statistics and you can say, no, I think from the time we moved to this, whenever people work from home, this is the kind of benefit that we've been able to get. It has made maybe the aspect of working and delivering on projects to be easier. It has also made the aspect of teamwork easier, or vice versa. So depending on how the outcome has been, then you need that justification to beef up your ideas or your argument. Then leaders minimize language errors junk words and vocalized posts. So that mistakes when you are speaking, so that people, because every time, we say that whatever has been spoken, especially something that is negative, rarely do people forget about it. So as a leader, your language, the choice of language, the choice of words should be clearly or cautiously be determined so that you avoid these language errors, because the more errors you make, the less people believe in you, or the less people now look at you as somebody who can make the right decisions. Then you have these junk words and vocalized process. So always articulate the issues as you. Don't even try to imitate somebody else, but just be yourself and let you remain who you are. Then number 8, write crisp, clear memos, letters, and reports, including the front-loaded communication. That means, like if you're writing a memo or you're putting a poster, ensure that whatever you're communicating is clear and it's something that a language that people can understand. Avoid use of a lot of jargon, because a lot of jargon may not necessarily communicate the message that you want to communicate. But great leaders always have ensured that they communicate their message in the language that people understand. Even if they're using metaphors, but you find that these metaphors, they just juggle your mind and you can know definitely what the leader is intending that message to, or how they want that message to reach out to the other person. So that's the essence of us understanding the aspect of clarity in writing any form of communication. The next is the basic principles of persuasion. Now, as a leader, there's what we call linking. You need to link your idea to the outcome. By linking the idea to the outcome, then you put the message in the right minds of the people. People are able to see that if we take this particular action, this will be the result. This is what we purpose to achieve. Then we have what we call reciprocity, from the word reciprocate. What do you mean by to reciprocate? You do something to me, I also do something to you. So in persuasion, if you want people to buy your, in this case now as leaders, you need to have that art of what? Persuasion. So let people understand what is it that you will do for them, and also what you expect them to gain, and also what do you expect them to do. Then there is also what we call the social proof. Social proof is walking the talk. What you do, what you say, let people learn from you. Let people see it in you. Let someone see whatever message that you're passing across. Let them visualize it in you. Let them see that you are leading that exemplary kind of life. Then consistency, very, very, very important. Consistency in everything that we do. Consistency. In fact, for you to achieve trust, for you to make yourself to be a successful person, there has to be that consistency. You can never achieve success if you're not consistent. Because normally, whenever you have any deviations, then it affects your momentum towards something, and it will definitely affect the outcome of that. Then we have authority. Leaders will always speak with authority. And at no point can you claim to be a leader when you show limited authority in you. Then we have scarcity. Leaders will always show that there is a gap that needs to be filled, meaning they are strategic, they're able to envision something and always trying to show that there is something that needs to be done. We need to do something. We need to put our efforts together. We need to mobilize resources towards a particular aspect. When you do that, then you are able now to convince people into buying into your idea. That's the principle of persuasion. The next, we have the use of nonverbal communication. And since leadership involves communication, then it should actually include the emotions. And remember, words alone cannot communicate convincingly. A major component of emotional impact of a message is the nonverbal communication. A self-confident leader not only speaks and writes with assurance, but also projects confidence through body, position, the gestures, and the manner of speech. That's usually the belief. If today I ask you to give me the features of your, depending on which church you go to, you'll always tell me that maybe you are a religious leader, you expect them to exhibit this character, you exhibit them to dress in this manner, you expect them to when they're preaching, they need to be moving and all that. Now, that is the kind of image that you are creating here and saying that the nonverbal communication plays a very, very vital role, an imperative role, especially in making people to believe in the leader. Okay, the manner in which you conduct yourself, the manner in which you move, the dress code, the positioning. Are you appearing to be timid? Are you appearing to be confident? And the manner in which you actually run down the logicality of your speech is what will also determine how people perceive you as a leader. The other bit is overcoming the cross-cultural communication barriers. As a leader, we need to be sensitive to the fact that there is always cross-cultural communication barriers. Now, with COVID, there are some people who have been struggling because we are used to communicating physically and shaking hands and all that. So with these COVID regulations, now people are really feeling like there's a barrier in that communication. Whereas we still had communities even before that who are not shaking hands. So to these other communities, the idea of shaking hands is a common phenomenon, of not shaking hands is a common phenomenon. While others, it has become a barrier to communication. But then as a leader, if you're having this cross-cultural diversity, then how do you ensure that you are sensitive to them? Then secondly, challenge your cultural assumptions. So that means every time rethink and say, what is it that we can improve on? What is that we can do better? Show respect for all workers, use straightforward language, look for signs of misunderstanding with your language. If your language is not resonating with the language of the people that you are speaking to. When the situation is appropriate, speak in a language of people from another culture. And this is common where if today I want to, or you've seen even political leaders, if today somebody goes to Narok, they want to speak or to communicate to those people in the Ma language. So somebody will try at least some 3 or 4 words to just communicate and say or say greetings in that language. That means you're trying to speak or to speak with those people, speak to them, empathize with them, put yourself in that, and usually it makes a lot of effect when it comes to people getting to actually connect with you. Then we also need to observe what we call cross-cultural differences in etiquette. Then we should not be diverted by style, accent, or grammar. We need to be sensitive to differences in the non-verbal communication. We need to be sensitive to differences in non-verbal communication. Be attentive to individual differences in appearance. That's aspect of sensitivity. So leaders have to ensure that they are very sensitive to these communication aspects. Then before we go to the break, we have these conflict management styles. I believe we are very conversant with this competitive style. We have sharing style, collaborative style, and avoidance style. You as a leader, you may not exhibit all of them, but depending on the situation that you find yourself in, that's when you will, for example, promote or you'll use competitive style. Now, competitive style comes in when people are competing for resources, or they want to outshine others in the organization, or somebody wants to outperform. They want to be the top performer. Now, that is where, so you find that some people will complain and say, some people here, they're not willing to share information, they're not willing to share resources. So depending on the situation, then the competitive style comes in where now you want the individuals, you want the departments to take advantage of the resources that they have and perform optimally. So of course you'll hear those others saying, oh, we are disadvantaged and all that. So depending on how it is, then you can use that. Then we have the sharing style, whereby now you look at if there's a challenge with the resources, then you try to ensure that there is a balance, there is harmony between the resources that people are asking about or that feel that they're not able to perform to the expectation. So you try to ensure that you at least equitably share that to give people the opportunity to put in their best. Then collaborative style. Of course, this comes in when you realize that there are situations that require you to bury some of the hatchets, when now you have to give and take and then ensure that you work as a team. You say, we are not going to fight anymore. We are not going to quarrel any objectives the more you not achieve your objectives. Then we have the avoidance style. Now, these are short-term style whereby you as a leader, you think that this problem will just go and with the time it will actually vanish off, it will just disappear. So it's like you look at it and say, I think if John and Michael they're having a quarrel, and I don't think if we just do not interfere, it will automatically just go down on its own. That's why you say, where you decide and say that we'll use the avoidance style. So you don't want to engage in it, you don't want to interfere, but according to you, since it's not a very, the impact will not be so high, then you just want to play it cool to ensure that you get to that point. Like nowadays, people say that you just play it chinyamaji. So that chinyamaji is like the problem will just die off, and people will just forget about it with the time. That's now on conflict management. But as you do that, then we need to resolve this conflict. And how do we resolve the conflict? As a leader, you need to have a high-level management skill to help two or more group members to resolve the conflict between or among them. Then much of the time that you need to have is to invest in conflict resolution, which will assist the people to resolve their conflict. Then we also need to get the parties in conflict to understand on dealing with the problem. They need to confront that problem as it is. Let them not wish away that problem, because it will still recur, it will still affect them. So it's important that when you are solving the conflict, let people come into their senses, let them acknowledge, let them come to reality that actually this is a problem and we must get way out of this problem. Then we need to ensure that this approach is preferable to inviting each side to speak with the manager or leader alone, because then each side might attempt to convince the manager that he or she is right. So once we are alive to the fact that we have a problem that needs to be resolved, then it makes each of the parties to rethink why and how it's going to affect them. And that calls for a lot of negotiations. So as a leader, if you look at this now, a leader, then we have these two. I have brought to you together to see if you can overcome the problems you have about sharing the workload during a period in which one of you is overloaded. So in this case, then Josh is saying that I would be glad to help Stephanie if she ever agreed to help me. If she has any downtime, she runs to the break room so she can chat on her cell phone. Stephanie says, I'm glad you did. Josh never wants to help me, even I'm drowning in customer requests. So as the leader is there and they're having these two people and they want to resolve this conflict. So this statement is drawn from this concept of resolving the conflict. And you can see this divergent view from these two guys and how they need to. So the leader is trying to tell them that he wants the two of them to do what? To resolve a problem. And I think these are common phenomena with where we work and the people that we deal with. Where at times you'll hear others complaining that they are overworked, others will say so-and-so is not helping me. But you can see the response of Stephanie is a typical representation of the people that we always talk about that. Josh is also a typical example of the guys that we work with. It could be even ourselves, where we find ourselves in this kind of situation. Then, from that statement, then you can find that the leader is saying that both of you are antagonistic towards each other, and you look for little faults to pick. And you can see that here, Josh is saying that Stephanie has never agreed to help them, while Stephanie says, Josh also never wants to do what? To help me. So we are seeing exactly what happens at workplace. Stephen says, look who is talking. I've seen you napping in your soup when you have downtime. Now you can see how interesting this conversation is turning out to be. I know that the name Josh is related to joking around, but our Josh has a warm heart. I'm open to starting with a fresh start. Maybe Josh can ask me politely next time he needs help. Then here Josh says, Josh says, Stephen is not too bad, and I know she can perform well when she wants to. Next time I see her needing help, I'll pitch in. So in this case, you can see how this conversation is taking shape, and they are able to understand that Stephanie and Josh, the problem is them, and the leader is just trying to actually get back to them to get to their realization that the problem starts with Josh and Stephanie. And as they go ahead and just reason out and think about what each one of them is doing, that's when now they're coming to their sense that they need to find a solution to this problem. And a conflict consultant, Patrick Nagen, believes that being able to intervene in the conflict of group members is a management skill that grows in importance. And you can see what role this leader is doing. Remember, he's not the one that is trying to tell them what they should do. But from the conversation, you can see that the next point is saying, the both of you are antagonistic. You always I can see you're picking faults in Josh, you're also picking fault in what? Stephanie. Now, that is where we talk about the art of coaching. You're trying to coach, you're trying to make these people realize where their problems are. But you're not telling them what to do. But you're engaging them to make sure that they come to their realization. They take cognizance of the fact that the problem and the solution lies with them. Okay. Lastly is the negotiating and bargaining under this communication and conflict resolution. And it's important to know that as leaders, you need to have negotiation and bargaining skills. And one of the things that we need to start with is begin with a plausible demand or offer. If you're negotiating on something, focus on the interest, not position. Search for the value and difference between the two sides. and always be sensitive to international differences in negotiating styles. That way, then you'll be able to resolve conflicts. So that is the last bit on communication and conflict resolution. Ladies and gentlemen, then unless if there is any question up to that point, I hope I've been clear on my conversation. If there's any question, any clarification, then you can ask before we take a short break in a few minutes. Hello? I hope I've not been talking to myself. That means I'm not exhibiting the leadership quality, because I need to get to know that my audience are actually at par with the conversation that I'm having. Okay, fine. Marilyn, you're clear. Okay, presentation. Okay, Thomas, thank you. Okay, I can see the chat section. So the chat section is affirming that I've not been speaking to myself. That's what I wanted to confirm, that I'm not speaking to myself. Right, so then, ladies and gentlemen, we can take a break. We can have a break, then after that, I'll be glad to take up on the second and final bit of this, this conversation. So let's link up again in the next, after 10 minutes. Around 10 past 10. Let's link up at 10 past 10 for the final bit of this conversation. Asante sana. Are we back?
Hello, we're back.
Yes, I'm back.
Good. I'm also back. So I think we can proceed from where we stopped. I think I had mentioned about this, and we completed on conflict resolution. Right now, we move straight to the leadership initiatives for achieving cultural diversity. Leadership initiatives for achieving cultural diversity. And maybe before we embark on this, I would request that somebody just tells us what is cultural diversity. You just try to share with us, what do you think, or what does cultural diversity mean? From that understanding, then we're able to zero into these initiatives that we ought to put in place to ensure that we manage the cultural diversity. So what is this cultural diversity? Anybody to take us through that briefly? What's your understanding of cultural diversity?
Can I give it a try?
Yes, please.
I think it is the appreciation that we come from different religions, different tribes, different skin culture, and we appreciate that we can work together and achieve what we want to achieve, despite our differences.
Okay. Yeah, the aspect of appreciating our differences.
Yeah.
And using these differences to work together. Thank you. Anybody else to add on that? Cultural diversity. You can also chat. If you are not able to speak, you can still chat. We need to get that opinion from you with regards to what is cultural diversity, so that we learn more about our anchorage. What is it that we believe is cultural diversity? Because that's what informs our coexistence, and that's what makes us to understand that with cultural diversity, we need to find synergy, or we need to find teamwork. And we can only appreciate that if we have a clear understanding of what this diversity is. So as he's mentioned, we are looking at, it's more of appreciating the differences in the people that we interact with, and looking for how well these differences can be used optimally. Instead of using those differences to divide, but we use those differences to build a unified group or a unified team, a unified organization, or a unified family. So that is, I think, clearly what that means. The aspect of acknowledging that these differences exist and you cannot wish them away. You cannot say that you only exist with people from your own religion. Neither will you say you can only exist with people from your own or from your age group. You can't say that. The different generations at workplace dictate that these people have to be dealt with differently, with the aim of ensuring that you achieve harmony. The different ethnicity that we are in, you can't claim that you only work with one ethnic community at workplace. You can't even say that you only have one ethnic or you have a homogeneous ethnic orientation. Even at home, we are having this inter-community marriages. We're having this coexistence and all that. That's the aspect of diversity. So meaning we must mark that with the element of how do we optimally utilize the strength of each of this diversity, this cultural, these ethnic differences to make us achieve the best. Religion, talk about age, talk about education, talk about the sex or gender, talk about the orientations. All that are things that we ought to have put in place to ensure that regardless of even disability and all that, then we need to look at how do we build a harmonious team. This harmonious team can only be built if we acknowledge, we take cognizance of the fact that we should not look at this diversity, these differences from the negative aspect, but we need to look at them as pillars towards building a better and a strong team where we exist. And that's what brings in, Joseph says, acknowledging that people are different, oriented in values, norms, beliefs, and practices, and learning to understand and accept the variances to achieve a common purpose. Thank you. Thank you very much, Joseph. I think I concur with that. So having that mind, then having that background, then we need to understand that then as leaders, then what initiatives do we need to put in place to achieve this, to achieve that cultural diversity, that recognition that we ought to manage people across, regardless of where we are. We need to acknowledge this and also understand that cultural diversity exists. I want to bring to your attention, there is one of the pioneers, in fact, one of the pioneer researchers in time, Hofstede, cultural dimensions. Now, Geert Hofstede says that different countries, in different countries, we have these different national cultures which impact on how we deal with situations. And he comes up with the 6 dimensions. And these dimensions, he talks about the power distance. He says that if you have high power distance vis-a-vis low power distance, that's one of the dimensions. He says that organizations or countries with high power distance means that there's a lot of hierarchy. And with that hierarchy, then it tends to drive people towards following the hierarchies, being strictly following the regulations or the rules that exist. Compared to a low power distance, whereby there's a lot of flexibility, there is that aspect of trying to break that hierarchy into a flat organization. So vis-a-vis, when you're comparing that, you find that now organizations with high power distance vis-a-vis low power distance, the aspect of making decisions, the component of managing diversity now is determined by how that is. Then he also talks about uncertainty avoidance. He talks about masculinity versus femininity. He also talks about indulgence versus restraint. He talks about long-term versus short-term orientation. So all these originate from the dimensions of Hofstede. And Hofstede is an author that has been able to shape how multinational organizations operate. That you'll have now people drawn from different countries, nationals, and the onus is on the manager to have that understanding, to have that comprehension in order to ensure that he optimizes on the potentials of each of these. And also it goes even deeper into issues to do with even language, things to do with nonverbal communication. So your understanding, it should be that when you're having people from the different cultural backgrounds, then how do you ensure that you do not act as a leader, you don't act to offend some of them, but rather look at how do I unify these by ensuring that I'm sensitive to the different aspects, both even the language, the choice of words, the non-verbal communication, the kind of message or the kind of behavior I portray. How does it ensure that there is harmony? So as a leader, then one of the issues that we need to ensure that is that you need to hold managers accountable for achieving diversity, establish minority recruitment, those are initiatives, retention and mentoring programs, then conduct diversity training. This one is very key because it sensitizes the public, it sensitizes the people in the team to have the understanding of their diversities and how these diversities can be utilized for the betterment of them as individuals and for also the organization. Then also there is need to conduct intercultural training, just for people to understand why some ethnic communities this manner, why is it that they like this kind of food? So when you're having or why do they celebrate these? All that is part of intercultural training, so that we get to understand that this practice, we should not demonize it. We shouldn't look at it negatively, but we should appreciate that we have people also who have their own practices, and let's also acknowledge and appreciate them, congratulate them for that kind of practice. Then encourage development of employee networks, which is also a very, very important aspect when we are looking at the initiatives towards leadership development. Then we also have avoid group characteristics when hiring for person organization fit. Now, what does that mean? Let us not generalize some characteristics of a group and therefore say that we don't want, or this kind of people, they have this, we stereotype them in this manner, and therefore we don't see anything. We don't see them as potential staff or members that can change the perception of the people that we interact with. So we need to avoid that stereotyping, avoid group characteristics when hiring for a person organization fit. So let's focus more on the person and not where or who they represent. I know this is a concept or a culture that all of us are fighting towards, or are fighting it, because of the biasness that happens, and it's happening, but we are looking at how do we change this mindset, so that if I hear about your name, I should not, once I hear about the name, I should not associate you with a particular behavior, but let me look at you as you. Let me look at what is it that you can bring to this organization. What is it that you can change in this organization? How well can we bond to make sure that we get the best out of you? That's on this leadership initiatives for achieving cultural diversity. On the same note, we need to look at how do we develop multicultural organizations. And the multicultural organizations, I don't know whether we have anybody here who works with a multicultural organization, which I don't think we work where we are only having one culture, but the different groups, even from the national setting, where you work, you have people from the different cultures. But ultimately, our purpose of working together is to ensure that we achieve our personal goals as well as organizational goals. But also we can achieve that if we also appreciate that we have our cultural differences, and nobody should actually come and say our cultures are superior to yours, or yours are inferior to us. But rather, we need to take cognizance that we come from these variations, and therefore it's what has brought us to who we are. So by appreciating that, then it gives us actually the need to look at these cultural differences are what makes us to be who we are. So in developing a multicultural organization, then we need to look at leadership diversity. Now, this is where we talk about in the leadership of the organization, do we have people that have this diversity? Are we having leaders with different skills? Are we having leaders drawn from different backgrounds, so that from that background, then they're also able to think from a different point of view. They're able to think from, or we talk about thinking outside the box. And like if you only have leaders drawn from some sort of a homogeneous kind of setting. So this is diversity. And I think when you'll be progressively looking at corporate governance, you find that even in Kenya, now we have more codes that govern the diversity of the board or the diversity of the leadership. Even our constitution talks about a third of either gender. That's basically now on gender. But when you look at the different codes of governance, they stipulate how organizations should have the composition of their board, which now takes cognizance of this aspect of diversity. Then we have pluralism and low levels of intergroup conflict. That means also you're looking at togetherness, you are looking at the needs of each one of us. In other words, pluralism is the recognition that we all have our own needs. In an organization, of course, we all have our own needs, but what binds us together is the objectives of the business. But as we pursue that, we're also pursuing our own needs. That's what that entails. Then we have no identification gap based on cultural identity groups. So we shouldn't have that identification gap because of the identity groups. Absence of prejudice and discrimination. I think that I cannot belabor it, because you cannot build a multicultural organization if you prejudice people or when you discriminate people. That will automatically spell doom to your prejudice and discrimination. Then also we need to have full integration of information networks. So the full integration of information networks is what guides on how we interact. What sort of celebration do we carry out? How does that make us into full recognition of this integration? Then full structural integration. I think that one basically addresses the issue of having on board the different cultures and integrating them into the organization within the team. And they'll say that in this month, we are celebrating this group of people. Next month, we'll celebrate this other group of people. That way, then it's like it has become part and parcel of their practices. And you see actually them coming out and celebrating. That is full integration within the structures of this organization. Then after that, then we look at the global leadership skills as another initiative of leaders. So in order to lead these multicultural organizations, then we expect that a global leader must satisfy what we call meta values. These meta values are meaning, community, and pleasure. The meta values are those three. So meaningful work is another universal motivator. As one CEO said, people will work for money, but die for a cause. People will work for money, but die for a cause. So as a leader, you should create that meaningful work. Create meaning in work. Are you a leader? Are you a person that finds value, or you find meaning? Actually, you find value in the work that you do. So you work for the money, but you die for a cause. That means you're looking at the motivator, but at the same time, you're looking at what drives you. Okay. Then the leaders of our successful multinational firms nurture good citizenship behavior, or the desire to serve the common good. That's now in terms of community. And then I think it's exhibited with the manner in which how these multinational firms operate. They would always portray an image of an organization that has or is sensitive to the needs of this community, that takes care of the needs of the community. And you've seen how they engage in CSI, how they actually practice, how they celebrate the community that they operate in, how they also just generally ensure that they develop infrastructure around that. Then another skill of global leadership is pleasure. And pleasure can be discussed in view of a function or intrinsic motivation is that energize that. A global leader should always find the motivation to work, the energy to achieve what that organization, what that function purposes to achieve. And they'll always share that vision to the organization itself. They will want to see, they will want to share that, and therefore, by sharing that aspiration, that vision of the company, then they find pleasure in achieving that. Like you've seen, sometimes you listen to these corporate, the CEOs, and they'll tell you that they want to impact on society. They want to drive an organization that will be recognized globally. Now, that is the pleasure. For them, that aspect of self-actualization is indeed the motivation for them to work. So as a global leader, then, these are the three meta values that as a leader, then you need to focus on. But of course, these are not, we're not saying that these are the only ones, but it's just a guide on what are the key areas of focus that we would be looking at as leaders. Good. So allow me now to proceed to, after leadership initiatives, I want us now to look at leadership development and succession. Leadership development and some areas that I want to address in this bit under development. Sorry, I think we lost connectivity, but we are back now. Yeah, so I was saying, I'll be looking at the 4 areas. That is the learning. We look at the leadership development programs. Then we look at evaluation. Now, learning, and maybe before I look at this type of the single loop stroke, double loop, but learning generally entails in character, permanent change in the way we do things. And generally, that aspect of transition from one point to another. So learning, in this case, then, if it's about leadership, then we are looking at a leader having able to transform through, it could be through experience that is based on work. It could be experience based on what you've gone through, some knowledge acquisition, or generally the environment that you exist in. How does it affect your change, your relative permanent change in the manner you deal with things? Even how do you make decisions? Do you make decisions out of informed consent? Do you make decisions because you've learned how to make decisions? Now that's entirely what our discussion will be with regard to leadership development and succession planning. So one of the authors called Chris Agis coined the term single loop learning and double loop learning. And he said that in learning takes place in those 2 aspects, the single loop as well as the double loop learning. So according to him, single loop learning occurs when learners seek minimum feedback that might substantially confront their back or basic ideas or actions. So you just look at the minimum feedback. So I send a communication to you, about the meeting. I send a communication to you about the experience I had today at workplace. Then the feedback that I get is what single loop refers to. Then also he coined another term called double loop learning, which is more of an in-depth type of learning. So that when people use the feedback to confront the validity of the goal or the implicit or valves the implicit in the situation. So that means you send me the feedback, I interpret the feedback, then I take action. So the aspect of taking action after I get the feedback, which means my action will also reflect on how we interact, then it's a double loop. In fact, if you read more about Peter Senge with regard to learning and all that, then you'll be able to understand more about the components or the principles of learning. So according to this, the understanding of leadership should be informed by aspect of 1, getting feedback. Then 2, double loop is when now from this feedback I've received, how do I respond? And my actions, how will they again affect the person that I'm dealing with? So it becomes a complete what we call a complete two-way communication, whereby from the feedback I'll take action subsequently. Right. So for instance, look at this single loop learning. That's interesting feedback. I'll keep it in mind. And then it stops there. That's interesting feedback. It could be awakened that I'm working on the wrong project. I need to investigate it further. So you can see how the double loop comes in. There has to be action. This one is just you get the feedback, then you'll consider it. But in this other one, then you're looking at further, how will I respond? What will be, has the feedback given you a recognition that what is wrong? Has the feedback awakened your mind that you ought to change the manner in which you're dealing with the other people? So after the learning, then we look at the types of the leadership development program. So these leadership development programs can be categorized into 6. 1, we may have leadership development programs that are feedback intensive programs, whereby you subject your leadership skills, or you want as a leader to engage with the environment, engage with the people, just get the feedback and find out what areas you're doing well and what areas you're not doing very well. Then we have skill-based programs. Now, these are determined by the kind of skills that you require as a leader. It's a very common phenomenon where we say that now that you've moved to leadership position, like we've seen, when people get promoted, they go for leadership development programs, like new leaders development programs. Now, these new leaders or the leadership development programs impart the skills of you as a supervisor, of you as a leader, to be well versed in handling the new role. And we have a number of those programs that we carry out. Then we have conceptual knowledge programs. Now, this is basically the concept of understanding. If it's about you're getting into a leadership position, then do you have the knowledge about leadership? Do you have the knowledge about management, the principles, the practices? That's just knowing about those programs. Now, if you understand, for example, this program, this training that we are handling today, some of you, you're doing this or you are attending this training because you want to develop your skill. Others, you want to just get to know what does leadership entail. That's now the conceptual knowledge program. So you're attending this because you just want to build your conceptual portfolio with regard to leadership. Others, we want to do this because of personal growth programs. Maybe there's a program, there is a personal growth or a personal growth career program that you're looking at, and for you to grow, you must have attended a training in leadership. For you to qualify to grow or to qualify for that, maybe a position that you're looking for, you must show evidence that you've undergone through a development program. Or for you to get your CPD points, for you to get your renewal, it all depends on where your personal growth journey is that you require to have gone through these programs. Now that can be categorized under that. Then we have these socialization programs. That's where people meet to network. They meet to understand each other and generally share experiences about the workplace. Now that could be the socialization programs. Then of course we can also have the coaching and psychotherapy programs. Coaching has become a very, very imperative component of skill development. It is a very important component because of the shift. There's that paradigm shift in terms of leadership where we are looking at developing people, not just managing people, but developing people. And you can only develop someone if you are able now to make them realize their potential, if you're able to make them think about their growth, if you're able to make them perceive their journey from where they are. And that's what is informed by this coaching and the psychotherapy. So that is it with now this leadership development program. So they can be categorized into these 6, but it also depends with as individuals, then are you now looking at the skill-based? Are you looking at conceptual? Is it feedback, intense, personal growth? But now that you understand all these, then you could be participating in any of them or 2 of them, but you're looking at as a leadership development program, then what is the objective of you attending, for example, this training? Are you attending this training because you want to build your capacity in networking? I don't know whether at the end of this training you'll have known people like Thomas where they work, or you'll have known Lillian, or you have known Marilyn. Does this platform provide for that socialization? That's the question you need to ask yourself. And like now when you're meeting and you're interacting and finding out where maybe Thomas works, what is it? What challenges do they face vis-a-vis your challenges as Rhoda, for example? So that need now to socialize and understand each other is what informs the socialization programs, which is more of networking programs as part of the type of leadership development programs. And of course, there is the coaching and the rest. Then still under leadership development and succession, we have evaluation. So under evaluation, these evaluation training programs should actually focus more on the design of experiments and development of accurate outcome measures. And this should ask the questions such as, do people who receive mentoring actually become more effective leaders? Do leaders who attend outdoor training become better team leaders? And does university-based executive program improve the decision-making skills of participants? Now, these are the questions that I would require you to answer them. Do you think if you undergo mentoring, you become an effective leader? Or do you think if you attend outdoor training, you also become better team leaders? And this is informed, in fact, it's just informed by this previous slide, where based on the leadership development programs, then does that inform this? From where you sit, then do you think that but through mentorship, coaching, that people become effective leaders, or the other factors that can make people to be effective leaders? Then at the same time, do you think if you attend outdoor meetings or trainings, then also that builds your capacity to be good team leaders? Or does university-based executive programs improve the decision-making skills of participants? Those are the questions that, as you look at evaluation, evaluating your leadership capability, you ought to be asking yourself and trying to find solutions to that. So maybe just to have a conversation, what do you think? And this is what will also make us understand what is the source of leadership? Is it, do we acquire, is it innate? Is it something that we can build on? Is it something that we keep shaping, or like generally, what is this leadership? So therefore, the question that you need to ask yourself, or the conversation I want us to have briefly, maybe within 5 minutes, is, do people who receive mentoring actually become more effective leaders? Or ask, have we ever gone through mentoring? And do you think mentorship and coaching is important? Anybody to share with us the experiences? Anyone? In other words, do you agree with any of these evaluation questions that I've posed here with regard to leadership? Or as part of your leadership development and succession, do you think, do you agree, disagree, or what is your take on these? Lillian says, mentoring and coaching helps to cultivate leadership skills. So we appreciate, Lillian, for your sentiments. So according to Lillian, mentorship and coaching helps to cultivate leadership skills. Anyone else? What is your take? What do you think? From where you sit, what is it? Do you agree with this? Do you think there could be other aspects that inform leadership? Do you think you only become a better leader if you attend outdoor training and like an indoor training? And here you'll be free to share your experience, if any, on whether having interacted with people, then maybe outdoor training makes you a better leader or a team leader. Guys there, or they have muted themselves? Are they following this conversation? Because we are around quite a number of us, but I'm not getting any response.
Okay, I can try.
Yes.
Yeah, we can use the example of a church setup, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, as we keep attending services, you get, as you get the sermons, then you get enlightened, and this can improve you as a person, you know. Something like that. That's my take.
Wow, yes, thank you, Rhoda. Yeah, you shared with us a very important one, that the more you interact or you attend the sermons, the more enlightened you get. And also it's like you change, or your mind is able now to be enriched. Thank you for that. Then we have Thomas says, not exactly experienced as so to outdoor helps and change the skills. Then Marilyn says that both complement the expertise acquired. Mentorship is by example, and coaching enhances confidence. Thank you, Marilyn. Then Peggy says coaching and mentoring helps to boost the confidence of a new leader. Good. Thank you very much for those comments. Let's keep sharing. So make sure that by the time we end this session, if you've not commented anything, you're the one who will speak before we conclude, because we want to know your leadership experience or how you feel about any of these concepts that we are discussing. So thank you very much for you these comments on the chat. And I think we are agreeable that, as Thomas says, not exactly. That means you may not have not necessarily that you have to attend an outdoor meeting or training to be a good team leader. I think there are other areas that we can have that can build you. People even learn to be good team leaders through experience, through what they see, through what they read, through what they watch. Sometimes you just watch an inspiring video on how teamwork is being done. You can listen to an inspiring talk on teamwork, and it actually works magic. Lydian says interest matters most. You can train someone who is not interested, they will not gain the momentum. Yeah, you can train people. At times you may train people, but they are not learning. Learning does not take place. But you find somebody saying that they have undergone 20 trainings in a year or 20 trainings within 2 years. But you find that their character, their approach to decisions is the same. So then the question is, where is the gap? Is it that this person has never transformed? It's like learning has never taken place. Mary says practice is the best teacher. So the more you do, the more you get to learn. And I think that one is, she resonates with the 4 Ps that we talked about under the learning to be lucky, the 4 Ps after winning or working towards winning. Good, thank you very much. So allow me now to proceed to the next slide, still on evaluation. Evaluation through the domain. So this is how we can evaluate leadership. One, through intrapersonal skills. There's a chart from
Jambas.
Cosmas. Outdoor training helps us grow, boost confidence, and add knowledge on whatever we already have. Thank you, Cosmas. I think Cosmas agrees that outdoor trainings makes people to grow, boost confidence, and add knowledge to whatever we already have. So we appreciate a lot, Cosmas, for sharing with us on that. So when we're looking at the evolution of this leadership development, then we have what we call the domains. And the domains can be classified as competency domains. That can be Rasters, kindly mute yourself.
Wow, good.
Looks like Erastus is having trouble in muting. Okay. Can see a hand. Raise your hand. Okay. Fine. So I was talking about these domains, that they're the ones that can inform our evaluation of our leadership, and we can have them, or we can classify that into intrapersonal. Now, intrapersonal is basically yourself, having the self-awareness. We all understand the emotional intelligence. In emotional intelligence, we say that effective leaders have a lot of practice with regard to emotional intelligence, meaning they understand themselves. Then they understand the awareness of other people. That's the social awareness. Because from understanding yourself, then you understand the makeup of other people with regard to emotions and how your reaction or your response will affect their response, and how their response also affects the other people's response. So in this case, as you understand yourself, then you need to have what we call a good self-awareness. And this will basically deal with your audit. You've audited yourself and you've said, I have this quality as a leader. I'm good at decision making. I'm good at analytical skills. I'm good at communication and all that. So that way, then you get yourself an audit to determine how well you fit into, or how well you can grow your leadership capability. Then we have interpersonal skills. So that means you're moving away from self now to the people. How do you complement each other? Remember, I talked about the team. The team is made up of people with complementary skills, capabilities. So that complementary network is what brings out the whole team. So we need to know, how do you then deal effectively with others? How do you fit in with your charisma? How do you fit in with your analytical skills? How do you fit in with your decision-making skills? How do you fit in with mobilization? So having all this together, then it enables us to have a very, very effective and efficient team. So interpersonal skills, how do you communicate? When do you communicate? And why do you communicate? Is what will be very, very significant with regards to the interpersonal skills. Then we have the leadership skills. So the leadership skills will reflect on influencing, inspiring, and persuading others. Sorry, are you able to hear me now? Hello?
Yes, we are hearing you. We are getting you properly clear.
I think there was something I could see, it had unmuted me, but I think I can now proceed. So I was talking about interpersonal, and I said interpersonal, we need to envision a team, a soccer team, any team that has these complementary members that complement each other because of their diversity in skills. Then we have now leadership skills, where I've said influencing, inspiring, persuading others, as well as envisioning and many other capabilities. So as you do your audit of your capabilities and you look at how can I influence people? Do I have this inspiration? Have I mastered the art of persuading others? Am I able to negotiate? Am I able to make people understand the ideology that I want them to buy? Am I able to make them feel part and parcel of that ideology? That is on leadership skills. Then we have now the business skills. So business skills comes in with regard to your ability to plan, budget, forecast, cost cutting, running meetings, preparing reports, and so forth. So at the organizational level, then that becomes very imperative, because you need to have that cognition, the understanding of budgeting, the understanding of planning, meetings, reports should be part of your mindset. It should be part of your reserve. It should be part of your skills, the stock of the skills, for you to effectively carry out your role as a leader. So that is it with under leadership development and succession, ladies and gentlemen. So I want to take you through this case study of Joe. Then after that, then we'll be able to conclude. So this case study is in reference to what we've discussed. And especially, remember we said, as a leader, you must have followers. So these followers are the team that you ought to have. So we have a case of this Joe, who is a maintenance coordinator for a public university and is responsible for all the building maintenance and physical systems on campus. He has a number of departments to accomplish the assigned work. And you can see those departments, the 5 of them. Then the workload for Joe has increased in the last number of years. As the physical plant continues to age, Joe requested to hire additional workers, but the budget did not allow for it. It became apparent that Joe needed to find more creative ways to better utilize his current resources in order to get more accomplished. Looking at this case study and the narration of this story now, you can relate with what the components we've talked about. You can relate with conflict. You can relate with the element of leadership development and diversity. So Joe observed that his departments were not working together well, or even in some cases, it was common for one department to go into building fix a problem and then leave a mess for the next department coming in behind them to do their work or to do their part of the work. And you can see now we are being introduced to a case whereby departments are engaging in unfair practice, or people are engaging in unfair practice, yet he's focusing on building the team. So workers seem to think only about maximizing the output of their own department and finishing their work quickly, with little regard for the impact on other departments and the long-term impact on the university. I hope we are at par in following this conversation. So then, what could Joe do to better coordinate the work of his departments and make better use of resources he has so that more work can be accomplished with limited budgets? You've heard the case, or you've seen the case. From here, he has a number of departments. You can see the 5 departments. The workload has increased. He has requested for additional workers, but the budget does not allow. Then he needs to find more creative ways to utilize his current resources. And he has observed that departments are actually working to fix each other. They do their own work. It's like you do your work. What happens after that? It's none of your business, and you don't care. And department, it's like people are doing work and leaving others also to struggle on their own. So people are looking at mainly maximizing the output of their own departments and finishing their work quickly with little regard on how it impacts to others. So what could Joe do to better coordinate the work of his departments and make better of his resources so that work can be accomplished with limited budgets? So over to you for your reactions. What do you think Joe should do? If you are Joe, then what will you have done, or what will you do? Reactions, let me see your responses. Those who can chat, those who can unmute themselves. It's your time to share your experience, or you share how will you do. Ukiwa ni wewe, what will you have done in this situation? Come on, guys, let's respond. Let's share what we'll have done, or what will you advise Joe to do? Did we hear the case? Okay, can see some reactions. Okay, Lilian says the internet went off. Okay, Rhoda says I will have called all the staff for a meeting and put them into teams and given them deadlines to accomplish the tasks. Richard says we'll call all the 5 departments for a meeting and explain to them the need for teamwork. All right, thank you, Richard. Thank you, Rhoda. So as you're talking about calling them and having a meeting, that means you are exhibiting, you're trying to resolve a conflict. Just want to overcome the barriers. Okay, let's keep chatting. Let's keep chatting, guys, ladies and gentlemen. Let's hear out what you'll have done in this situation. What will you have done? Because remember, you've been told you cannot hire more people. The work is, you've actually been informed that the work has just become too much. There's a lot of workload, or the work is too much. And yet you have no budget. But then work has to be done. So what will you do? What will you do? Thomas says, I'll call the sectional heads for chatting way forward together, particularly timeline settings. Right, thank you, Thomas. So Thomas will bring in the sectional heads of the 5 departments to have a tete-a-tete on the matter. Madeline says she will call the section heads, set targets, and explain need for consultation and teamwork. Right. Lillian says this happens many times. See how best to stagger the team so that they do not get exhausted and encourage teamwork. Well, thank you, Lillian. I think, Lillian, you acknowledge that it happens. It happens all over actually where we work. But your suggestion is that we need to look at the best way to stagger their team so that they do not get exhausted or encourage teamwork. Good. Keep the chats coming. Keep the chats coming. Okay. So the outcome, based on the feedback that you've had, then Peggy says, I'll first get my work tight, right? Like have a plan for the most important work to be completed first, then see how the departments can work together to ease each other's workload and come up with timelines for completion. Deal with the conflict to encourage teamwork. Also come up with incentives to motivate the workers towards achieving the common goal. Thank you, Peggy, for that. You talk about having a plan and see how that plan will bring in it will augur with the workload to ease each other's workload and come up with the timelines for completion. Then deal with conflict to encourage teamwork. I think that's a very important note, that you also need to deal with teamwork, because from the case you can hear that at one point now people are just on their own. I do my work and I'll leave the work for the rest. So that means already the bond of teamwork has been destroyed. So that's a very important point, Peggy, for noting. Then you come up with incentives to motivate. Then Lillian says, recognize every small effort by members to keep them motivated. All right, thank you very much. So based on that, then the outcome or and it resonates with what you've given, is that Joe could have each department or hold a meeting with each department, select a team leader to represent them. Call for a meeting, which I think this is what you mentioned from the responses. Call for a meeting, share the budget numbers with them, and explain what they would be expected to work together more closely. Have each team leader identify what he could do to help each of the other departments. So in this case, he will ask the other team members to tell, if we are to work as a team, what will you do as the head of this department, so that at the end, we are not competing, but we are actually assisting each of the team members to achieve the common goal. Then continue to hold weekly meetings with team leaders so that they get to know each other better, to share information, hear the requests from each department for what they could use from others. Then begin cross-training people in more than one trade in order to promote sharing of available resources or workers between functions when the workload permits. Now, another case study is now on interpersonal skill. That was on what Joe could have done. So this one is a case now regarding Jennifer. Now just read through. So Jennifer is an accounting department manager for a regional chain of convenience stores. She is an accounting superstar. She has a bachelor's degree, recently passed her CP exam, and she really exceptional in her accounting package knowledge. She was so good, in fact, that she was promoted to department manager in her previous company after only 2 years on the job. She has been at her current company for 10 months. Jennifer has implemented 2 accounting procedural changes that have streamlined the work and resulted in cost savings for the company. You can see the kind of accounting procedures she came up with. She reports to the CFO, and he's concerned about Jennifer despite her obvious talents. There's no denying that she has had a positive impact, but Jennifer is not fitting in so well. She's poor in communicating and seems to have alienated quite a few of her peers and her employees. She's often aloof and distant, and her usual way of motivating performance is to simply dictate what will be done and expect compliance with her orders. She has good ideas, but has little ability to present them well or to work as part of the team. Now, Alex is Jennifer's CFO, and do you believe he can coach Jennifer? How will he approach her, and what will he say? What issues will Alex work with her on? How will he hold Jennifer accountable for improvement on the issues identified? So what will you say now with regard to this case? I'll just take you through again that Jennifer is the head of the accounting department. She's an accounting superstar. She was good. In fact, she was promoted within only 2 years of the job. She has implemented the procedures, as you can see. It could be typical of what we do and how other people also do at workplace, that she has had a positive impact. But you can see that she's what? A poor communicator and seems to have alienated quite a few of her peers and her employees. She's often aloof and distant, and her usual way of motivating performance is simply dictating. Are we the Jennifer in this case, where you want people to comply? They either toe the line or quit. She has good ideas, but the little ability to present them well or to work with the part of the team. So now Alex is Jennifer's CFO. Do you believe Jennifer can be coached? How will you approach her, and what will you say? What issues will Alex work on with her? How will he hold Jennifer accountable for improvement on the issues identified? So you as a HR professional, in this perspective then, in each of these, what will be your response? Anyone? As part of just responding to these questions on poor interpersonal skills, what will you advise? Or if you are the Alex in this case, what or how will you deal with these areas? Any responses, ladies and gentlemen? And I'm sure you can, this Jennifer is just a representation of the people that we are. It's a typical example of the people we deal with. Anyone? Okay, I can see a chat from Cosmos. Cosmos says Jennifer should undergo a train on how to be a good leader and not a boss. So do you think, Cosmos, according to you, do you think Jennifer is coachable? Can you coach Jennifer to get into recognition to this? Then how will you approach that? Depending on the situation that we are in, assuming now Jennifer is one of your staff or your colleagues, and you need to share this challenge. She's a performer, he's come up with so many procedures that you've implemented, but this limitation is on interpersonal skills. Rhoda says Alex should initiate in-house training session and refresh them on key issues. Jennifer is coachable and can learn from that training. Thank you. Then if I was Alex, I would first have a casual discussion with her and mention the importance of clear communication and why it's important to allow the team members to give their contributions and monitor how it goes. Her problem could be attitude issue and not a skill issue, since she knows she's very good. Wow, it's a good observation from Lillian. Rhoda, thank you very much. You said Alex can initiate an in-house training and refresh them on the key issues. Jennifer is coachable and can learn from that training. Good. Thomas says first is to hold a meeting and highlight areas of concern, then certainly point out the critical role of communication for leaders. Wow, thank you very much, Thomas, for your input on that. Thank you. Okay. Importance of good relations. Thank you, Margaret, for sharing with us on that. So on these are just the options. Probably Alex, and I think some of these points you've already mentioned them. Next with Jennifer to talk privately. I think one of you casually on that, and share the experiences. Richard says, yes, Jennifer can be coached and she can change if willing so. As the CFO, I will have a meeting with her, recognize her efforts in improving the department operations. I will then ask her to involve the team members and communicate clearly to them, making them feel part and parcel of the department. Thank you. Mary says, Jennifer needs training on leadership skills. Wow, thank you. So the probable outcome from, and thank you very much for sharing, because what you've mentioned would actually be part of these probable observations. We've talked about discussing with Jennifer privately, then also give the feedback and observations about what has been of concern. Remember, you need to be direct but kind. Explain why her methods may be of concern and the impact they're having on others. Identify a minimum of 3 change goals to which Jennifer will agree on. Set specific behavioral objectives and ask her to document what she does in regard to each of them. So that means this will enable you now to monitor, as per the last bit of the question. How would you monitor that to ensure that there's a change in behavior? Now that's where learning comes in. Agree to meet again to discuss the progress. Consider assigning Jennifer an in-house mentor. I think we've talked about in-house training in another department if available, or securing services of an outside coach to help train her and encourage her to practice good human relation skills. Let her know that her performance appraisal will reflect on how she's performing in her leadership role in addition to her accounting role. Be a good role model for building teamwork and collaboration. These are just It includes many of the observations that you've mentioned, and you can see that we are thinking on the same line, just like how Alex will have approached the situation. So this gives a summary of what we've discussed on the basic leadership skills, how to influence group performance, the nonverbal communication, the art of coaching, and self-confidence in dealing with issues. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for your attention and also for participating. And now it's time to ask if there's any questions, any reactions as we close. Right, if there are no comments, I don't know whether Dan is on this line. Jennifer needs training on these. Thanks, Alex. You'll be getting the notes for the 2 modules. Yes, yeah, there'll be, I think you'll be able to get the notes through the system. If you're not logged in, then you can liaise with Dan on logging into the system to get the materials, the training materials for the 2 modules. Right. Good. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and have a very, very eventful weekend. And see you again next time in a different forum or in the same forum. Thank you and God bless.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, James. Bye.
Thank you, Rhoda.
Thank you, James. Bye.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Thomas.
Thanks, James.
Thank you, Maina. Is it Maina?
Yes, thanks.
Yes.
Nice weekend.
Thank you, James.
Nice. Thank you, Lillian.
This is highly appreciated.
Goodbye.
Bye.